And away we go. All right, welcome everybody. Tuesday post-market recap. We get together on this webinar every Tuesday following the market close. Talk about what we're seeing early on in the week here, flow, sentiment, talk a little strategy, and maybe come up with some concoction of a game plan for the remainder of the week. All right, and so far so good. We'll talk a little bit about everything here. We'll try to cover. We're getting through earnings season, flow. We were in the midst of what I like to label earnings flow, where the flow doesn't really make much sense, pretty messy, sloppy, and that's starting to clean up. And things are starting to look a lot better. All right, so we'll go over all of that as as quickly as we can to get through the webinar. And then I'll take some questions from you guys. If you have anything on your mind, from symbols to what the hell I'm talking about, strategy, anything like that. Just let me get this out of the way because it's a lot easier if I get this early on, because I forget at the end, and that's when I get all the questions. If anybody has any questions on any of the terminology, if you're new to any of these webinars, you're going to hear probably some terms I use that you may not be familiar with, or if you're just new to the option game or anything like that, you could go to wallstreetjesus.com. You click on the strategy section here, the link at the top, and there's a bunch of easy to read short blogs, okay, little write-ups that pretty much will answer all those type of questions, okay, from simply what's a sweep, what's a sweeper, you hear that term a lot, to how we incorporate that into a trading style and strategy and what we look for. Okay, so you got 2 pages here you can see, and you can breeze through that, become a little more familiar. Also, if you're interested, we have a free trial going with no credit card required. That's the premium package to the room, okay? And like I said, no credit card. You get 3 days in the room here, and you get access to basically everything, audio, video, the whole 9 yards, okay? And on the site, you can see the packages thereafter. Also, private Twitter, we rolled that off into a separate entity. If you choose to go that route, you can access private Twitter. You go to products section here, click on the private Twitter tab, and as easy as that, $59.99 a month, you'll get access to just private Twitter. Private Twitter is included in the trading room subscription as well. Okay, so it's not an add-on there. We just rolled out private Twitter separately because there was some demand for that. All right, and like I said, any questions you can hit up myself, Lucci, on Twitter. You guys know where to find us. So let's get into the good stuff here. I like to always, as you guys know from prior webinars, I like to start by going back, not too far back, but go, where we were coming into the week, things we were looking for, and what's starting to materialize now, if anything, okay? And what we were seeing, we were in that environment, like I said, through prior webinars, I'll probably ring a bell, we were in that choppy consolidation type environment, okay, where the playbook, if you guys remember, was to look to buy off selling primarily, okay, maybe some consolidation at times, but the majority of the time it's off some selling pressure. When the retail crowd gets to a bearish extreme over the short term, okay, and look to lock some profits, raise stops into a squeeze that followed. Okay, that was the playbook ever since this panic here. All right, and the reason being, after you have such a drastic move like this, you have a lot of bearishness out there, okay? And any little selling will create the retail crowd to start scrambling to put on protection. Some look to take advantage of downside, okay? And I can tell you from experience, when the crowd out there, when the retail players out there are all betting on downside and they're on the same side, throughout my career, I've never seen them click. Okay, I'm being honest with you. There was one time where I saw put buyers get paid for a decent amount of time, and that was 2008 Armageddon. That's basically the last time I seen some of the bearish indicators that I look at get to an extreme and remain there with some selling pressure. Okay, 2008 is an outlier. Okay, if you position or plan for another 2008, each and every sell-off that we see, the market's going to teach you a costly lesson. Okay, the way I look at it is every time we see bearish extreme sentiment off a sell-off, okay, I would say, again, I'm using numbers off the top of my head, but let's say 8 out of 10 of them squeeze hard and can be profitable. All right, and that 1 or 2 out of 10 end up where it would be a losing trade on your part. I mean, if you look at it through those lenses, you would look to take advantage of that trade time in, time out, right? It wouldn't even be a question. But for some reason, a lot of players out there, they like, I don't know, maybe because it makes them feel different, but they want to catch the one time that it may break. Okay, and that's what they focus on, and they forget about the other 8 times that they run them over on the short side. All right, and what happens in this climate, you get a lot of frustration on both parts, because what happens too when you have a rally off these sell-offs and the rally continues to strengthen, all of a sudden that retail crowd that was so bearish at the lows now starts to feel good again, right? They feel bullish. You hear lines come out, off technical reasons or fundamental reasons. We couldn't break so-and-so, so now I'm bullish, okay, after the move. And what happens is the market may stretch for a little bit, right? And then they get run over, right? They buy the highs and the market falls apart on them. And you'll hear the term out of retail land, chop. I'm getting chopped up. Okay, you hear that ad nauseum throughout this type of environment. All right, eventually this will come to an end. Nobody knows when, okay, but this is a form of consolidation. And after you come off a year like we did last year, this is totally, I hate to use the word normal, but this is what is supposed to happen. All right, you don't get a market like we did in 2017 and expect, similar type market where we get a runaway bull again the year right after it, at least start off that way. So this is, again, I hate to use the term normal and expected because nothing's expected in this market, but this is what usually happens when you get the type of year we got last year, okay, where money on the long side came easy. All right, so there's no way of knowing early on here if this is something bigger, okay? And the same thing applied, don't let anybody fool you. In 2008, all right, the same thing was going on. You had people calling for Armageddon for years then too, all right? And what happens is the market wouldn't break and people started to make excuses that the market doesn't care about subprime. Subprime is not that big of an issue. They started brushing off some of the major issues out there, and then it ended up stemming into something bigger. Okay, it wasn't easy to predict. You guys saw The Big Short, the movie out there. All right, I'm sure all of you saw it. Did you see what that guy had to actually sit through to cash his chips at the end on the short side? You think you can do that? All right, and the majority of us here, we're traders. Okay, if you're not an active trader, and I would say 9 out of 10 of you are, you shouldn't even be focused on that. We're looking to trade what's in front of us right now and try to take advantage of the opportunities that are there, not trying to predict what may happen a year out in this market. okay? And maybe that is your style. But I can tell you from experience, I don't know too many people, okay, especially on social media and crap like that, that have been successful doing it that way, especially on the short side. All right, but as active traders, we're looking in this type of environment, we're looking to take advantage of what I just told you the playbook was, okay? And is to be against that retail crowd at extremes. And we use the flow, which is the opposite, in my opinion, a gauge on how the smart money is positioning, okay? We're looking for signs that they're taking the other side of that trade. Okay, so if the retail crowd's bearish, we're looking for some bullish signs at a flow, and that would be, as I like to call, the sweet spot. All right, so I'm not even making it up. Okay, those of you on Twitter who followed, those of you in the room know exactly what I'm talking about. Sentiment has been incredible throughout all of this. Okay, throughout all of this. Sentiment has been a huge edge throughout all of this. All right, and right now we come off another low point where we had some sentiment on our side. Okay, we had a decent rally off of that. Things got a little too hot because of the strength of that rally. Some of the shorter term sentiment went from bearish extreme to now, almost chase mode type of thing. And today was the perfect day that you would want to see when some of that shorter term sentiment was a little too hot. Okay, so today, in my opinion, was actually a bullish day within a day of digestion off the recent spurt. Okay, and we're seeing some signs at a flow too that are or have been encouraging. Okay, we're seeing some real deal action out there. Okay, which has been lacking. That's a good sign. Okay, we've been seeing names that they really didn't have an interest in seeing some action. Like names like Caterpillar, they were getting aggressive on into some weakness. Names like Boeing catching action, tech names, Intel, even names like BIDU that really doesn't catch too much action, caught probably 4 legitimate bets over the last 2-3 days on the call side. Okay, so we're seeing some encouraging signs. We want to see that follow through in a sense. Okay, because let me explain to you what usually happens. And this is what makes it difficult to predict. Okay. In prior rallies off bottoms, these short-term bottoms, what we would see is the flow go from bearish to bullish, right? But then as we reach a top and the market starts to roll over, we see that flow flip again from bullish to bearish. Okay, and that's just the smart money out there playing this, range in a sense. All right, or positioning and protecting against this range. All right, so one sign I'm looking for that flow basically to signal to me that the playbook is changing would be when there's weakness rather than the flow flipping from bullish to bearish, we see them buying that weakness, right? That's the positive sign that'll come out of the flow and give us an idea that at least there's a tradable move, even a short-term trend, like we saw back here off the Feb lows. Okay, a rally that lasted for a good month, maybe even longer. Where you get that trend, that grind higher, where they buy weakness. Okay, back in February, if you remember, those of you who are on private Twitter in the room, or even on Twitter, because I post a lot of stuff there, the regular Twitter, we had these lows, okay, and you remember the missiles and all that jazz that came in and all that stuff, Win, STZ, then we had a strong rally, then we had this pullback, and they bought that pullback. And then we had another push higher, okay? And then the flow turned here. The flow turned bearish. There were no buyers into this whatsoever, okay? Until finally we got to a point where the selling dried up and there was some buying down here. All right, So that's kind of the pattern we're looking for out of this off low. And sentiment will help us out as well, where we don't have to wait necessarily for bullish signals at a sentiment, but it'll help us avoid chasing some of the moves out there. All right, so for example, I mentioned to you on this day, okay, by the close, a lot of the shorter term sentiment stuff we were looking at was a bit too hot by the close of this candle. Okay, and a lot of the reason why this rally didn't just start here, started on this day, this huge reversal from red to green. Okay, that's where the rally actually started, followed through here. So here are some of the shorter term sentiment indicators were telling us as traders, as active traders, we should sit tight and wait before we start looking to put on new positions, add, maybe look to take some profits if we did some buying down here. That's what sentiment was telling us here, okay? The market actually went up the next day, okay? Through the bullish sentiment, went higher the next day. But then today we had a decent wash right back to down here, where now this shorter term sentiment out there has come down to basically neutral, okay? So again, not any bullish signals out of it, but neutral's okay as long as the flow confirms it. All right, and in simple English, what that means is even if this market, starts to grind lower from here, we want to see them buy into that weakness. That's going to be the tell-all for me, at least. Okay, and if we see some legitimate buying, those are going to be the opportunities. Our next entry off of this here. All right, so far, knock on wood, things look good. It's just a couple of days off the rally here, but things look good. Some of the names you guys know about, PayPal has just been, annihilated on the call side. There's evidence, obviously, of some sharp player involved in this PayPal. They did a little buying. The stock sold even into that buying. There was Amazon news that they were getting involved in the space. So there was some weakness there. But you know what we look for? We look for them. If there's real buying coming into a name, they're not going to be thrown off from a little weakness. They're going to look at that as an opportunity to add. And boy, have they added. You're talking about big time buying in this PayPal, starting to get a lift here, starting to look good. I think most of you know, especially the members out there, but you guys know the action that's been coming in here. The sharpest activity has been September, October for the most part, but there's been some other stuff, May, June. They started to roll some of that stuff, but the big players out there in September, October. Look at this September action. $460,000 sweep, $300,000 sweep, $400 sweep, a block, $7 million. Ridiculous. Okay, and this was the October. You can see the size here: 200, 300, 500,000, 2 million, 500,000. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Here's more Octobers, $4 million sweep. All right, so I would say hands down, that's been probably the name to see the action out there off this recent move. But there's been a lot of other stuff. You guys will probably throw a ton of names at me. Okay. Today, after the oil shenanigans, where there was news that Trump wasn't pulling out of the deal, then he was. After that little yo-yo, I don't know what the hell went on today. Prior to that, there was some decent flow out there. Then things started to really calm down, and you can't even blame them. Nobody had a clue what was going on. Oil was selling off, then rallying back. But some of the action we saw prior to that was some decent looking action. Square, which just ripped. Okay. And you guys may know from Square, there was a monster opening put seller in this Square before this call sweeper activity even started up here. Okay. Today, they came in aggressively, real nice action in July strikes. Okay. And got aggressive there. And this thing was a solid day trade for a lot of people. So already a solid swing trade, and so on. Okay. Even names, like we've been seeing, the Intels of the world, see buying on any little dip. Any little dip, they support this name. There's been solid flow, as you guys know, throughout. All right. And any little bit of weakness, they come right back in. Microsoft, they support constantly. Some of the more promising signs, some under the hood. I love this stuff. This is the part of flow that I like the best. The under the hood action in names like Box. Okay. This was seeing activity, I think it was about a couple weeks, maybe even months before Chamath Palihapitiya pitched it at the Sohn conference as his top pick for the year. And then we've been seeing flow, sweeper activity since then throughout, seems like every day, and a real strong move here, real strong move. Yesterday, there was some bull risk reversals out in June. I think it was yesterday. Today, more tack on sweeper activity. So there's been some nice names. Nice little moves in these things. And this is what we want to continue to see. This name, Win, not the casino, 1N, W-I-N, saw a decent looking August sweep into the lows here. The casino names, the gaming space, there's been a lot of good looking groups out there that are seeing some action that we need to keep an eye on. And the beauty of it too is that even though we still have a decent amount of earnings left, the big names, the majority of the big names are done, and we're starting to see post-earnings action, okay? Because the issue prior to that, and that's why the flow was so sloppy, is that even though we were seeing some call buying out there, we really didn't know how real it was. It's a lot of earnings position. We were seeing blocks that are tied to stock, replacing stock, a lot of put action, protecting some of the longs out there and stuff like that. All right, so that's what I guess the moral or the one thing to take away from today's webinar would be is we need to see this pace and trend of flow continue, even more so if there's weakness here in the days ahead. All right, so if you're members, it's easy to see. If you're not, things to look for on like Twitter would be me spitting out some new names that are catching activity. Just call sweepers in general. All right, when you see me on my personal Twitter, when you see a lot of dead air out there, that usually means nothing's going on, and that's not an encouraging sign. All right, so I'll get to some questions that you guys may have, names, questions you can throw at me here, and let's see what we can do here. Matt wants to know about dry ships. I'm just kidding. That was an earlier thing. What do we got here? Anybody got any good names that I didn't mention? Gordon's asking question. What are those little numbers on the? Oh, those are sequence counters, DeMark stuff. I had my boy playing, a friend of mine / colleague of mine, blah blah blah, playing on my Thinkorswim here, and he threw on a bunch of indicators and stuff that I'm not going to use, but they look pretty. I think these are DeMark points or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, he was pitching to me, and I know a couple guys that I work with, quite a few of them actually, who use flow in addition. You've heard me say this like a broken record. They use flow as an indicator of confirmation with something else they have a lot of confidence in. So this particular gentleman who I'm referring to was pitching to me the other day that these DeMark exhaustion signals, when they're lined up with sweeper activity, it's a deadly combination. I can't share with you much about that because I don't follow the DeMark process too much, but it makes sense. Makes sense. These DeMark signals are used for both buying and selling exhaustion, but in this particular case, when a name has experienced some selling and the selling starts to dry up, and then you get some call sweeper activity into that name, and that's music to my boys' ears. All right, so yeah, those numbers are DeMark numbers. Tim is saying, to verify, you mentioned to expect more buying by smart money into weakness. Also, what are your thoughts? It's not that I'm expecting, Tim. I try not to. The only time I use the word expecting is when I'm really confident about something, because I try to stay out of the game of prediction. But the reason why I maybe feel a little better about we're going to see buying into weakness is because of some of the intermediate term sentiment out there. Okay, because we've been stuck in this consolidation for a bit, where rallies have been sold and sell-offs have been bought. That doesn't last forever. Okay, and while that's all been going on, a lot of those intermediate term sentiment readings out there have really gotten bearish. Okay, have really gotten bearish. I throw on Twitter from time to time. A couple of them I look at. Those of you in the room, private Twitter, know what I'm talking about. So that's what has me to believe that the likelihood we get some sort of trend type move here is higher than in the past. Okay, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen or it has to happen, but the flow will confirm that, in my opinion. Okay, because what happens is if people are caught short, or players don't have exposure to stocks in general, okay, because they've put on a ton of protection, too much protection, or they've done too much selling, okay, what starts to happen if the market starts to rally, these players need to get in, okay, they need exposure to these names, and we're starting to see it now, names starting to push higher, and players need to chase just to be in the name. Okay, and that ends up snowballing into something bigger, and that's where you get these decent squeezes that last a while off environments like this. Okay, doesn't mean it has to happen now this week, but I think a great sign of that happening would be rather than we start seeing put buying come in when the markets start to look weakish, we see call buying come in. Let me give you an example. Today, I'll give you an example. It's on a smaller scale, but you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Today, we didn't have an up market. Okay, we had weakness out there. And as a whole, even though it was quiet at times and thin at times, you can see what the board looks like. Doesn't look all that bearish, right? So that's what I'm basically getting at. That even though price may look weak, if the sweeper activity, the flow I'm seeing is bullish into weakness, that's as good as it gets. That divergence for me is as good as it gets, because that's a strong indication that the smart money's buying that weakness. Ultimately, you're going to get rewarded for that. All right, so that's what I'm looking for to continue. Now, what would throw a monkey wrench into that? I'll tell you what, whether we're up, down, sideways, crooked the rest of the week, if we start to see, this board light up red and they start to get aggressive on the put side again, that would be a bearish signal. Okay? That would be a bearish signal to me. If they start scrambling for protection and you start seeing them getting aggressive as far as buying puts are concerned, and what I mean by a negative sign, meaning that we're probably still stuck in this at the least. And then the playbook is the same, right? See, that's the thing. As active traders, there's got to be a play in the playbook for the particular environment. You can't trade the same way in each and every market climate. If you trade right now the way you were trading last year in an all-out bull run, you're going to get manhandled. Okay. So from my experience, when the market goes into this type of correction consolidation, the playbook for me and my style of trading is to buy weakness when sentiment reaches an extreme and sell the squeezes. Okay. But not to ramble on, if the flow is signaling a change to that environment, okay, then we don't have to wait for a sentiment extreme to buy. You understand? If tomorrow the market's down a little and we see them buying calls hand over fist, I'm not going to wait for a bullish sentiment reading. I'm ready to go now that we're neutral. So that would be the difference, if that makes sense. What else we got? Mandeep saying, agree, Box has been incredible, traded the last couple of days. Yeah, Box, I'm going to end up, we were talking about that today, I'm going to end up kicking myself for not owning a piece of this as a longer term swing. Maybe there'll be another opportunity, who knows? But that kind of, when Palapatia kind of gassed it up at that conference, that was pretty much goodbye. And the funny thing is, this was, I think, the conference. It had a little breather here and then started to see the action, and then just got out of control here. Got out of control. But yeah, I like these, I call them under the hood type tech plays. And you probably know the software group in particular has just been lights out. There's been so many names in that group. We saw a couple of them catch action, but they have earnings. I'll give you one order that caught my eye, but has earnings. If it's week off earnings, it's something to keep an eye on. Is it Hubs? I think it's Hubs. Anybody familiar with this thing? Hubs? Very rare $112 number and a strong name that not many people have heard of. Anybody familiar with this Hubs? HubSpot? Nobody? Marketing software company. Yeah, I've never heard of it. It is a cloud. I don't know if it's a cloud. I have no idea. I know it's software. That's about the extent of it. And I know it caught a pretty decent looking order. But again, with earnings, I just can't get gassed up with earnings. I can't. If it's going to explode off earnings, so be it. I spit on it, move to the next. But maybe, we get lucky, not much of a reaction off earnings, and they come back and add to their positions. Then I'll be really interested in it. Really interested in it. Yeah, it's been a real strong name. You could see big move up and nice little consolidation here. Nice little pull off the highs. And before you know it, you've seen this pattern before. Without earnings and that bet that I saw, I would have high confidence this will be at new highs. But you never know with earnings, man. You never know. Same type of clientele that use Square and Weebly or Wix. Interesting. Yeah, so guys, keep an eye on this. It was a May bet. It was an in-the-money call sweeper. They have earnings 5.10, I think it is. So keep an eye after earnings. See if we're lucky. Maybe we get a little pullback. Might be something that interests you guys. And you guys know the other names. I mean, CRM is just a beast. This is one name anytime. And I'm saying this because of the action that's been there, probably for what now? A good at least a year, if not more. But anytime this thing pulls, there's always call sweeper support there. Always. There's always some size coming in looking to buy the pullback in this sales force. I know all you guys know the name, but it's just one name. If you're looking to buy a dip, as they say, right? You're looking to buy a pullback, this would be the first name I pull up to see if she's pulled back any, if you're looking for that snapback. Because it always seems to have call sweeper activity off a pullback and big time size. They did it again, and look, she's ready for new highs already. You know, but there's been other names out there like the Splunk that's been Splunk back at new highs, and you see what I mean. You see how the market really hasn't gone anywhere yet. Under the hood, though, look what's going on. You understand what I'm saying now? Under the hood, names that are catching action are already breaking out and wheels up, taking off. So that's a promising sign, right? That's a good sign. And what happens is the money, the flow will start pouring into some of the laggards out there. And I'm talking about laggards that are just stuck in consolidation still. And that's where the opportunities will be. It's not chasing a CRM, a box, or a Splunk. Those are gone. So we're looking for new names, new flow. And if we stay bullish, that's what we're going to see. I know a lot of you trade this BIDU. You probably saw on Twitter. I posted it a couple of times, my personal Twitter. Caught, I think I mentioned this already. Last, what was it? Probably 3 days, caught 3-4 decent bets. Small lot, under the radar, but big premium lane, big wood, in the $250,000, $300,000 variety. And she's looking healthy. She's looking healthy here, this BIDU. What other names? Throw some names at me. You guys got some names. I know you do, especially you members out there. Probably caught a couple names that I missed out on. MDB feels like they will take it to 45 before earnings. MDB, I'm not familiar with. MDB. Yeah, decent look. They trade options on this thing? I am not familiar with this MDB. Yeah, Jackie, the blink, I know that's more of a momentum type play. I don't really fool around with these at all. Everything I do is off flow and sentiment, guys, nothing else. I don't really get involved in anything else besides those two aspects of the market setting up. Hey, Jay, if the market indicator you have is not a pay version, can you share with me on email? Otherwise, don't worry. This is on Thinkorswim. Sequence counter. This is free. The other indicators are custom. If you go on Thinkorswim and you go to studies, add study, the whole deal, and go to sequence counter. And that's where you'll find it right here, sequence counter. All right. Also, Trading View, if you're interested in that DeMark stuff, has a couple free indicators that are pretty decent on that DeMark. But yeah, check it out, Deep. Because like I said, my buddy of mine swears by it. But again, he's only looking for, I don't know the proper term. So their numbers, 9, 13, selling exhaustion signals. And if that name catches sweeper activity, that's his go. And it makes sense, right? Selling's exhausted. Call sweeper activity is going to provide some momentum, right? Switch the direction. You get a squeeze going, and voila. We had a nice squeeze today, and I hate this group, boy. There's no group I hate more than the airlines. I wasn't going to swing it, but we had a nice trade in American Airlines, sold off after the menagerie of fake news that came out. But we started to see some call sweepers nibbling in weeklies. It was AALM Delta. And this was before it started the big move right around here. And, it was a couple different sweepers that came in, gave us an opportunity to find an entry, place our stops where we felt we would be wrong. And we got lucky because that's when oil ended up tanking, and we caught a nice move in these airlines today. Nice move. As far as a swing, there's just better stuff out there. The spot is enticing. That's why I even played it for the day. I like that it's kind of bottoming down here. See, deep, this would be a bullish signal for him. Now I'm curious. I'm going to give him a ring later on today and see if he's long AAL. See that 9 with the arrow there now? So now he's looking for sweeper activity. If there's call sweeper activity that comes into this name, he gets long. Because it tells you this selling has exhausted itself, and now call sweeper should provide momentum for a squeeze. That's what he looks for. Yeah, so the airlines were a decent trade for the day. What else? Hang on, I got questions I skipped over accidentally. Mike is saying, I trade a 2-minute period. I watch SPY and look for stocks, mostly tech, that have relative strength or weakness compared to the market. I've had consistent win rate buying strength, shorting weakness. Interesting. This week, 1 out of 2. Also notice really sharp 102 more. This is abnormal to me. How do I understand this? Well, I don't know your strategy well enough. It's something I've worked on my whole career, is not chasing strength and looking to buy consolidation or weakness. And for me, it's almost like seeing the light. That's how important it's been for me, And I came into the industry as a momentum player, chasing strength. I was taught to buy breakouts, watch for the volume and buy the breakout. And in the late 90s, you could have made a lot of money doing that. Okay. But since then, it hasn't been the same. I've seen a lot of failed breakouts being a better opportunity than chasing the breakout. And listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying not to look at strong stocks, but just look at strong names out of consolidation or a pullback rather than buying the candle that's up 3 and everybody and their mother wants to get long and be bullish. Okay. And the other thing too is a lot of these guys on here, Mike, trade options. Okay. And when you're trading options, okay, and if you don't have much time behind that bet, you chase green and get caught in a drawdown, you're done. You're done. So I think that would benefit a lot of retail players that I know out there, that type of style and so forth. So, listen, I'm not going to tell you, Mike, if something's been working, I wouldn't have the audacity to tell you not to do it. But just make sure you have enough of a sample size. Because, again, a quick example, last year, you know how many traders I bumped into that said, oh, I finally got a strategy. I'm finally profitable, Jesus. I'm finally. And, I'm not looking to hurt their feelings or be the wet blanket per se. But, my inner voice is kind of telling me, listen, the market has been raging. You could have thrown a dart and made money. Okay, so don't get hung up on that particular strategy. It worked last year. You were long and it worked because the market was so strong. But when we get into this type of environment that we're in now, there's a good possibility that strategy is going to be as useless as what. So just make sure you have a big enough sample size out there before you get hung up on anything. What else we got? Any other questions? Any other names you guys throw at me? I'm trying to think off the top of my head of some names. What did I post on Twitter before we wrap it up? There was some, let's see here. Some big time energy winners. We know that. That's another good sign, by the way. Crude, even throughout the weakness, there's some strong crude names that have held up and outperformed. You guys know what the Devon flow and what was behind that. This thing's been really strong. Hess, probably if one of the best, if not the best, flow-wise in the energy space for a good month or so now, if not a couple of months. More action again today, and look at this thing. If you remember, they bought this little breather here aggressively. So there's been quite a few energy names that look good too, even when energy was showing some weakness. Let me see, what was PayPal we spoke about. There was a little spec action in the defense sector today, RTN and LMT. LMT caught some late action, but that was more of a spec type action off the Iran news. And you can see, had a nice little lift into the bell. Box we spoke about. Here's a bet. See, this is the tough part for me. Ready? WWE. I know sweepers have been great in this name. Okay? They're rare. And when you see a decent sweep in this name, you usually just fire. The issue here, this name was just swept at lower prices and has had a big move. Today caught a decent October buyer. So WWE, that's World Wrestling Entertainment. And if you haven't looked at a chart, take a look. Strong name. See, another name under the hood, right? You think the market's useless, there's no opportunities out there. It's chop. Yeah, unless you just trade the indices. Look, I'm not making it up. What else did we have? MGM. The story behind MGM had big action pre-earnings. So I'm not the biggest fan of that. But then post-earnings took a dump, and they started buying it again. So you got some post-earnings there. I think they were August calls. I own a little bit of August calls, I think. MGM. All right, so that's a name that really hasn't moved much yet. Maybe it'll get going. The win. There's a big guy out there who's been buying the daylights out of it since down here, if you remember. Now he's hitting up September calls in size up here. This whole group has been great. Even Las Vegas Sands, which hasn't caught as much action recently, has been good looking. Here's a name I have an eye on. Boyd, BYD. No sweeper activity yet to trigger. There was some sweeper activity into the lows down here. Had a nice little lift. Now, breather, there was a call spread, a 1x2 call spread today. So, that's not my cup of tea. I'm looking for sweeper activity, and this would be a nice setup. BYD. Definitely some stuff to keep an eye on. I'll be honest with you. Earnings ruined a lot of nice potential winners. I mean, one off the top of my head is this Shack that caught two good-looking sweepers, but you had earnings in the way. And, of course, we wanted to see maybe some weakness off earnings. Yeah, right. Not going to happen. Some more action today, and the stock closed near its highs. Look at that chart. Shack. What else I got here quickly? Oh, this is Square. See, this is what I'll post on my personal Twitter. Yeah, I can't. We got paid members that I got to take care of first, obviously, but I'll post stuff like this, give you guys a general idea of what the hell's going on. Aggressive bull sweeper out there today, and there was. I think that's it, guys. What else? That's it. And you had the banks. The banks have been pretty sour. Here's what I've been seeing in the banks. Citigroup caught the best of the action today into strength. That was early morning. But you had Citigroup, Bank of America, and Goldman Sachs all catch decent buying. I think it was JP Morgan too. The only issue there, a lot of time behind the bet, meaning I think Goldman Sachs was an October bet. Bank of America, Citi, and JP Morgan, I think, was July. I'm almost positive. Maybe one of them August. So all the good-looking action in banks coming with time behind it, which is okay if that's, fits your style. But Citigroup, off the announcement that ValueAct took a big stake, was strong today and flow right out of the gate. More of the spec type flow. They were buying weeklies. And you could see had a nice ramp early on. Been some decent day trades, especially in the morning. Some decent day trades. Who has an analyst day, Bill? Who has an analyst day you mentioned? Oh, MGM, that's right. Has an analyst day coming up. So maybe that'll give it a kick in the rear end. Yeah, right now I'm not swinging too much, unfortunately. I wish I had more. What do I have? The new stuff I bought, MGM, and I don't even have enough. Maybe I'll add to it. I took a small, it was supposed to be just a initial entry piece there. I wanted to add to it. And I got a decent position in PayPal Octobers that I bought off the action. And somebody's going to tie me up because I'm ready to sell it yesterday. I bought October so I can sit in it, but I have a disease. I need to sell these things before I even buy them. I'm selling them. So, yeah, Red Hat has had a couple sweeps. I think they have an analyst day tomorrow. I think that was down today. Oh, she was down today, Ranchero. I forgot about that. You know that? She was down like $1.50 today. I forgot to pull it up. Damn it. Yeah, there was some nice action the past couple of days in this Red Hat. It's not initial activity. That's the problem. This RHT's been catching action throughout. But this is like CRM. This is another name, guys. Look at this chart. Does this look like it was in a correction? Look at this thing. Crazy. What Etsy do, by the way? They're reporting another animal. We got a little weakness? Don't tell me. Nah, nothing much. A little bit. They bought it right up already. But this Etsy, look at these stocks. Nobody even talks about them. Look at these things. Drive you nuts. So yeah, like I said, there are a decent amount of names to look at, and hopefully, if this continues what we're seeing, we're going to see the flow spill into a lot more. A lot more. All right. Anybody have any last questions before we wrap it up? Did I miss anybody's questions? If I did, if you want to shoot it out quickly, I apologize. But I have a tendency of doing that a lot. All right, so we'll keep an eye on the flow. DDD, I knew I saw that. DDD has seen some spec action. Nothing crazy. Had a big day today. Into this weakness, I don't know. There's somebody in the room, C-Train, whatever. He probably knows what the hell it was. I don't even remember what the bet was. And then today caught a small sweep today into strength. But personally, I wouldn't chase this. Down here we were talking, looks somewhat interesting because of this selling here. But I wouldn't chase up 10%, that's for sure. All right. Have a good night, guys. Again, if you have any questions about anything I was talking about, you go to wallstreetjesus.com. You'll find all the answers there, strategy section. And if you want to give it a shot, 3-day trial, you get an idea of what the hell we're looking at least. No credit card required. So no obligation whatsoever. All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by as always. I'll see you guys next week. Good luck the rest of the week.